What are you guys up to? I'm really excited because today is one of the most important days on the church calendar. It's not a holiday yet, but hopefully someday it will become a holiday. It always falls after Christmas, usually. Sometimes it's in other places too, but usually after Christmas, you can count on it falling on that day. Some of you guys look confused. You're like, wait, what is today? Well, if you don't know, some of you guys already know, and I'm glad. But if you don't know, I'd like to officially welcome you guys to National Let the Youth Pastor Preach Day. All right? It's kind of awesome that it's December 30th. December 30th, which just means that this is right in the middle of resolution time, right? And people are pretty mixed on resolutions. Some people how many of you guys already have your resolutions picked out? Raise your hand if you've already got them down. There's like no one. Who loves Jesus? Oh, okay, that's good. You're out there. How many of you guys hate New Year's resolutions? Raise your hand on that one. Oh man, I prepared the wrong message. Well, hopefully, I change your mind by the end of this thing. The reason I want to talk about resolutions is because of when this day falls, but also because I made a pretty big resolution this last year. I didn't do it on January 1st like a lot of people do. I did it when I had the strength to do it, but it started way actually before I actually started. It started back in April when my wife and I were on a cruise to celebrate our 10 years of marriage. And so that was a really cool thing. Yes. All that applause can go right to Britt because Lord knows she's had to deal with some things. So anyway, we were on this cruise, and because my wife and I consider ourselves to be world travelers, we took a cruise to Canada. So, yeah, we got out of this country, and we moved on and stuff. And so it was a really amazing thing. I've never been on a cruise before, but I loved everything about the cruise. We stopped in this little Canadian town. It's not really little. It's pretty big, but it's called Nanaimo, Canada. And in Nanaimo, we walked around this island. And as we were walking around this island, Britt had a great idea to talk about our kids. Now, I didn't think it was a great idea at the time because I'm on vacation away from the kids, like it's kind of funny. Moms are kind of funny animals, right? They're like, I can't wait till these kids go to sleep, right? And then the second they go to sleep, they're on their phone, looking at pictures of their kids, oh man, I miss them, It's like, so Brad had a great idea for us to talk about our kids, but not just talk about them, dream for them, to think about what we'd want from our kids in the next year. So we went name by name with Max and Macy and the other one, and we went name by name, and we kind of just dreamed of what we could expect from them in the year to come, right? And it was a really, really awesome discussion, and it was really powerful. But I remember as we got to talking about the things we were dreaming for my kids, I got excited for my kids, but I got kind of sad for myself because there's this thought in the back of my head that I'd had for a long time that I had a problem with weight, and this is a problem I'd had pretty much my entire life. And most of the time when you're younger, you can kind of deal with it. I hadn't gone to the doctor, I hadn't got any blood tests, I hadn't had anything come back negative, and I need to make some big changes, but I knew that the trajectory that I was on might take me away from my kids and might rob my kids of having a dad. And usually when you start thinking those terribly dark thoughts, you don't let your wife know about it, right? That's kind of don't let you see him sweat. But we were being honest, and I said, I love that we're doing this, but there's one thing that's sort of a problem, and it's this thing, this weight problem that I've had. I need to make a change. I don't know what that change is, and we kind of talked about some changes we can make, but I don't know what that is, but I know that I need, and that's where it kind of started, right? Now, it didn't take off there. We went right back to the cruise and headed straight to the buffet, right? Like, that was... Buffets on cruises are awesome, by the way. By the way. But I knew in that moment, the mental battle began. What am I going to change? And so I went through the summer thinking and praying and asking God to be a part of this journey that I knew that I was gonna start, right? And I got through the summer. I preached at the last camp that I was going to preach at for the summer, and then I started this journey September 1st. And from September 1st till now, which is roughly 4 months, I've lost 90 pounds. Obviously, I'm super excited about the program that I'm on and all of that stuff, and it's been a really great thing. However, I have to tell you guys, I started this thing at the absolute wrong time of the year, right? Like, I started September thinking, there's nothing in September, but October rolls around, my birthday's in October, right? And so nothing says, like, happy birthday to me like a fruit smoothie, like I'm getting older and I can't drown my worries in a cake, so just drink this thing. And then Halloween comes around, right? And Halloween is really tough because my kids go out in the neighborhoods and they get all that candy, right? And they bring it back. And I usually implement this thing called, the dad tax. It's like any Twixes or Reese's, those are coming back to me, right? Like that's for living in my house. You got to pay these things out. The rest of the candy you can have, right? And so the kids got out of tax season this year, right? Like, they didn't have to give anything. They started to give mom some taxes. Like, she's worse than the government on that stuff. But then Thanksgiving rolls around. Usually we're like, on these big holidays, we're like, we got to go back to the origin, right? But the Thanksgiving origin story is kind of like, we don't know if it's true, and it's kind of sketchy. So we've just decided that we're going to make Thanksgiving about eating as much food as we possibly can, right? And again, I'm there drinking my fruit smoothie while everyone's pigging out on the most delicious foods there are, because I think Thanksgiving foods are some of the most delicious foods there are. And then right after that, we have Christmas, right? And Christmas isn't just like one day. It's like 3 weeks of food that only comes out around Christmas time that's delicious, right? And so it's been a pretty difficult journey up until this point to those things. But what I'm learning is that every time I get through one of those things that were hard, I gain strength to get through the next thing. I gain strength to get through the next thing. For me, guys, this weight loss journey has been more than just losing weight. It's been a holistic approach to this whole thing. I knew that if I was going to be successful at this thing, I needed to involve my wife, and I needed to involve God, and I needed to take care of some emotional things along the way. It wasn't just going to be, here's the plan, I'm going to stick to it, and I got to get down to that area. And so for me, there's a Bible verse that through this journey has kept surfacing back to me over and over again. And it's a very familiar Bible verse. But it says this, and this is Galatians 5:22-23. If you got your Bible app, open it up, because I want you to highlight some things as I'm talking about it. So get those things on and fired up. So it goes like this. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. If you're familiar with your Bible, you know that this is a metaphor. Fruit is a metaphor the Bible returns to over and over and over again. And the idea here is that when a fruit tree is healthy, right, when it's in the ground, it's planted in good soil, and it's growing up, it's going to produce fruit. Fruit is not what the thing is, it's actually the outgrowth of what healthiness is. And so for me, when I started this journey, what I started to see the fruits of the Spirit as is I started seeing them as God's benefit package to us. God's benefit package to us. And if you guys, have career jobs and you have benefit packages, you guys are familiar with this idea that benefit package is something an employer offers an employee that you can opt into, but you don't have to. Like, you don't, here's a matching 401k. You can do that and you don't have. Here's a gym membership. You can do that and you don't have. Here's vacation. You don't have to take your vacation. It's things that are good, that are awesome, but you don't have to take a part of them. And in here, this is what it's saying. Against such things, there is no law. It's saying, here's all of the benefits of loving Jesus. And you can either take God up on these things, or you don't have to. And for me, these last three, the ones that I highlighted up there, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, became the benefit packages that I started taking God up on. And I started saying, I'm going to take you up on these things, God. So today, I'm gonna march through these things. One by one, just the three that are up there, I'm gonna march through them. But I want to put a disclaimer out there. And I want to say this right up front, is that I don't want today's sermon to be like over-spiritualizing weight loss. I'm sure you can find a book if you're into that thing. That's not what today's going to be about. What I believe is that through this journey that I did with God, my wife, and myself, God has taught me some things about making goals and following through with them that can be applied to any person in this room. That can be applied to any person in this room. And here's the thing is, if you're out there, and like I said, I'm not done with my journey. I still got a ways to go on my journey. This is not about me shaming you in any way. I believe in a God who loves you no matter your color, your size, what you're into, any of that stuff. God says, I love you no matter what. However, if you want change in your life, God says, here are some benefits that you can employ at any time to help you along that journey. To help you along that journey. So, you got to do the work today. Whatever the thing is, whatever your goal is, maybe not a resolution, but a goal, whatever it is, as I'm talking about my journey, you got to do the translation into your own life and what these things. And I'm going to try to keep my principles specific, not too specific to my journey, so that it can help anyone. All right? So jumping right there in the first one, faithfulness. Faithfulness is kind of a big word, right? And you could probably do a whole series just on the idea of faithfulness. For our purposes this week, and for what it meant to me, was saying something and then sticking to that thing. Saying something and being faithful to that thing. Not giving myself an exit strategy. Not giving myself an exit strategy. When I was 17 years old, we were at summer camp. And this is crazy because I've only been in Nanaimo twice in my life. Once was with Britt, and then when I was 16 years old or 17 years old with my youth group when we were up there. And my youth pastor, he liked to do these surprises. And I think these surprises were just so that he didn't have to tell our parents what he was going to take us to do, you know, because he was crazy. He was kind of a nuts dude. And so one of the things that we were going to do, and he surprised us, we rolled up this place, and he took the whole youth group bungee jumping off of the longest free fall bridge in North America, right? And so we roll up to this thing. We're all looking for the surprise. I was thinking like paintballing or something like that. And we roll up to this thing, and it's bungee jumping, right? And I'm like, this is dumb. This is so stupid. No, because I'm scared of heights. Man, I don't want anything to do with this whole thing. I've decided the second we rolled up this place that I'm not going to be a part of bungee jumping at all, right? I don't need to die today. That was the whole thing. And then something crazy happened. My friends started being, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to do it, right? Like, they get their legs all tied up together. You go like, wee, bungee jump, right? Like, I'm like, how come they're doing it? And then here's the crazy thing is, I never thought this would apply. But your mom's like, you know, if all your friends are jumping off a bridge, this was an idea that was never supposed to apply to life, right? But are you going to do it? And then in my head, I was like, nope, I'm not going to do it because I'm not into peer pressure, right? But then these like little girls in the youth group, like they're freshman girls, and they're like, you know, jumping off the thing, and I'm like, you know, and then I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I'm one of those auditory people that sometimes I talk to myself when I'm trying to like work myself into something. People think I'm crazy. I kind of am. But I all of a sudden I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I say, I'm going to do it out loud. And my friend's like, TJ's going to do it. And they all go crazy right there. I'm like, no, why did I say it out loud? It was so stupid. Why? And so I'm like, I go up there and they give you the spiel. They say, you get 3 times to back out, and then you lose your money. Then you can't do it again. We're not going to put you up a 4th time. So I said, okay, well, I got 3 times to look at it then, right? So they tie your legs up, and you're just like walking a plank, right? And I'm like, the plank's right there. I'm like, this is far enough, right? I just kind of want to look at it. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do this. But then there's this guy behind you. He's this big Samoan dude. I don't know where they got him, but he was the perfect dude for this thing, right? He just gets right behind you, right? He gets right behind you, and then he starts just kind of like buckling your knees a little bit. So you have to like wobble forward. You're like, hey, chill, bro, but he's big, right? Like, so you don't want to be like, hey, you know, it's like, and so it's like, he's like, oh, come on, keep scooting forward. I'm like, hey, I'm just taking a look, you know? And he's going to go, keep going. And I'm like, okay, this is too far. I'm past my comfort zone. But there's really no good exit strategy at this point. They've designed this so you can't back out very well. The best thing I could do at this point was fall into his arms like a sissy, you know? He starts kicking at me again, and then my feet are like right on the edge, right? And they make it so you have to get like literally like just your heels are holding on now, right? And I'm thinking, I'm going to back out now. The whole falling into this guy's arms seems like the safest thing. And I'm going to do this. But then, I hear all of my youth groups start chanting, TJ, TJ. I'm like, stop that. I'm giving up. I'm not going to do this. But I was like, okay, what? And he's like, hey, I'm going to start counting down, this big guy. And he's like literally standing right there. I'm going to start counting down. I'm like, okay, we're going to start like 100, right? Like, where are we going like, with this thing? He's like, no, I'm going to start from 3. And I'm like, no, that's too, I need some time. And he's like, no, you got this. And I'm like, I don't know. But TJ. And he's like, you can do it. I'm going to count down 3. You ready? I'm like, no. And he's like, 2. And I'm like, no. And I'm like, okay. And there's this moment. I'm going to bungee jump. There it is. I have the strength. I'm going to do this right now. And so I go to do the thing where you buckle your knees and you jump out. But I'm so scared that my knees just kind of buckle under me. And I fall off the edge. Didn't look cool at all. But I find myself free falling to the earth, right? At this point, I'm like, that was a bad idea. Like this is the worst. And bungee jumping is the weirdest experience. There's no experience in life where you actually feel what it's like to rewind real life. Like, I'm dying. Whoop! I'm not dying. This whole thing happened, And the crazy thing about this is because they're a business and because they have to get through people quick, they designed this bungee jumping thing so it's really, really, really hard to back out of it. Once you say, I'm going to bungee jump, and they get you tied, your legs tied together, and they get you on that plank, you're going to bungee jump. You're going to bungee jump, or you're going to cry into the arms of a big Samoan dude. Those are the 2 options. And so they force faithfulness because of their process. They force you to do what you say you're going to do, guys. And this is what I want us to think about, guys. Make your resolution. As you guys are making your resolves this week, make your resolution about faithfulness. Don't just commit to I'm going to be faithful to my resolution. We do that every year. Build into your resolution your plan of faithfulness. If it's hey, I'm going to write a blog. I'm wanting to be a writer. I want to do this thing. I'm going to write this blog. I'm going to do this thing. Then Thursday at 8 o'clock every single week, no matter what, sit at your computer, produce a blog, and upload it that night. Make that your whole resolution. Don't just I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to be faithful to it. No. Do what you say you're going to do. For me in my journey, that meant no cheat days. Every other time I tried this in my life, I always built in little cheats. Sometimes well, if it's Wednesday and I'm at youth group, I got to get something to eat, so I got to go to McDonald's, I have to. It's part of being a youth pastor, And I built in these little cheat days, right? And then sometimes I would build in cheat foods. If steak's available, I'm going to eat. If there's these things available, I can eat these things. The crazy thing is the more cheat you build into your resolution, the more you're not going to follow through. That always made me unravel. So for me to be faithful, to take God up on his promise, that if we engage him faithfully, he's going to engage us back faithfully. He's going to give us the ability to be faithful. I had to say no cheat days for me. I had to walk through this thing and say no cheat days. Whatever you're resolving to do, do not build in cheats. Do not build in cheats. The next word on the thing there is, this was one of the things that I started saying to myself way back at the start. And this kind of revolves around the idea of faithfulness, is be the me of today that the me of tomorrow would be grateful for. Be the me of today that the me of tomorrow would be grateful for. Every single time I wanted to give up, and especially in the beginning, man, there are moments of weakness. I thought about the future version of myself. And I thought about robbing from that person because of what I needed that day. Because of what I needed that day. Every time you build cheats into your resolves, you rob from your future. And unless you want that to be who you are, don't build cheats in it. Be the you of today that the you of tomorrow would be grateful for. Next thing is gentleness. Gentleness. This one's a hard one, especially for dudes. We're not really gentle creatures by nature. I know this because I'm raising a couple dudes and I am a dude myself, right? I'm raising a couple dudes and they come in the box prepackaged to wreck stuff. I find myself asking my kids questions that they can't answer, right? I'm like, why do you guys always have to turn it up to 11 on everything you do, right? Like I get you a stress ball, because I think that's going to be a fun thing for you to grip on because your sensories and some educational YouTube video told me this, right? And I'm going to get you this thing, and 3 seconds into it, you've ripped it open, and there's sand all over the living room. Well, we want to see what was inside of it, They're not gentle creatures. No, not even a little bit, And especially, this is the other thing, is guys who are in fantasy football leagues know this. Guys who play video games know this. Guys who play golf know this. It's really hard to be gentle when you win, right? It's really hard to be gentle because, it's built in. Smack talk is part of the whole deal, right? If you can't smack talk when you win, what's the point to life, right? But here's the crazy thing, and the funny thing about this is I was thinking about this message, I was like, should I just tell men to be gentle? Because I don't know if we need that. But I was sitting there thinking, some of the most, coolest, manliest dudes I've ever met have this uncanny ability, have this crazy ability to be gentle in victory. To be gentle in victory. Guys who win and they act like they've been there before? I don't know what that is. It's crazy. It's foreign to me. But whenever I see that, I admire it. I remember the coach, Tony Dungy, was like that. He was so different than any coach I ever watched. When he was on the sidelines, he wasn't throwing his headset and cussing at the refs and doing all the things that we see coaches doing. He was even keeled. He was the same person whether he was 40 up or 40 down, just sitting there making adjustments. Dude's like a Hall of Fame coach. Won Super Bowl, been to a couple other ones. Kind of reinvented defensive strategy on those things. And did it by being gentle even in his victories. Being gentle in his victories. The reason this was a big one for me was when I started this thing, I said, I don't want to be one of those people. I don't want to be one of those people who gets a little bit of success and all of a sudden they become the health coach. You guys know what I'm talking about? They get a little bit of success and all of a sudden they got the prescription to life. Here you go, here you go, here you go. And they start handing it out like it's crazy. I want to be humble in my victory. I want to live a life of example, not of proclamation. And I think that there's a good way to understand this. Describe versus prescribe. Now this is if you went to seminary or Bible college, this is a discussion you'd have around learning how to read the Bible. And if some of your resolutions are to read the Bible, which is a great resolution, this is a good thing for you to understand about the Bible. This is a good thing for you to understand about the Bible. When I first started reading the Bible, I didn't know anything about the Bible. I just knew that my youth pastor was like, you got to get into your word. You got to get into your word. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get into the word. And I would just open it up, right, randomly. I'm like, God, what do you got for me today? Boom. And I would read that page and I would decide that was what God had for me that day. And sometimes God blessed that, right? Sometimes God was like, this is dumb that he's doing that, but here's something for him, But other times, and most of the time, God didn't bless that. Most of the time, I would be like sitting there, and I'd be opening up, like, what do you got for me today, God? Oh, open it up. Do not boil a calf in its mother's milk. God, I wasn't even thinking about that. Not even a little bit. But now I'm thinking about it. Where do I get this cream of baby cow? They sell it at Olive Garden? Oh, well. You know? What I didn't know back then is this. The Bible, and this is really simplified because this is not a Bible college discussion, but what I didn't know back then is this. The Bible can be divided into two basic categories, prescriptive and descriptive. There's parts in the Bible where they're just describing what's going on. It's a genre called historical narrative, and they're just telling you the things that are going on. And if we read the Bible like we read fortune cookies, we can open that thing up and be like, wait, what's going on here? God's okay with these things? Especially in the Old. No, it's not prescriptive. It's not like God's sitting there saying, hey, do likewise. They're saying this is what happened. And those sections, especially those descriptive sections, you got to read the whole thing. You got to read the whole story and then draw a principle from it. That's how you do it. But then there's other parts of the Bible, and it's actually the less part of the Bible. They're called prescriptive. They're verses that you can just take, memorize, and at any point you can pull them up, and they're like a doctor's prescription. They're ready to go. You know, 10 Commandments exist in that prescriptive thing. What we're talking about today with Galatians 5, the fruits of the Spirit, that's a prescriptive verse. Anytime you see Jesus talking, it's red lettered like that. That's usually prescriptive things that you can take and do. Well, so you're like, TJ, now why are we down this road? This is crazy. Well, first of all, I'm a youth pastor, so I get distracted. But the other thing is, I don't think this is just a good Bible study method. I think this is a good way to live your life, especially in victories. Especially in victories. And what I want to suggest today is this. Describe your success. Describe your success. And leave it to God. And let God prescribe His truth through it. We cross a line when we start telling people, this is what you need to do. Barry talked about this a couple weeks. We bear witness. And God's the judge. He brings the conviction. We bear witness. It's not our job to go around being the people who bring the conviction. And oftentimes, what people don't like about the church is they know everything that we're against, but they don't know what we're for. They have no idea what we're for. And that's because we live here, guys. We live in the prescribed. We know that we've read the Bible. We know we won, so we're going to tell everybody about it. But here's the thing is, God says, use gentleness in your approach. Use gentleness in your approach. And I know this because I struggle with weight my whole life. And I can tell you this, the worst thing, and the things that cut deep, deeper than anything else, is when you get somebody who you know has never struggled the way you struggle, who has never known the pain, who has never known what you've had to go through, who has never experienced even the trauma that you've had to deal with. And they come and they're going to prescribe, they're going to fix your life, and they're going to say, hey, here you go. Here's everything you need to do. And you realize that person's never dealt with what I've had to deal with. If we could all learn to have humility in our message, to have humility in our success, to have humility in our victories, and we could use a gentle approach, we would arrive at this. This is what I'm doing that's helping me. And then God uses your story to write a prescription on the heart of that person. And it says, here it is. I love this approach. I don't know who said it, but I love the approach of the preacher who said this. Guys, I'm just a beggar telling other beggars where to get bread. As you guys have victory, as you go through these things, be gentle in your approach, and the world will listen because God will use that. This last one is kind of hard. Self-control. This is the last thing in the benefit package that God gives us. He says self-control. I think it's last because most people don't take God up on this one, right? Most of us don't like, I'll use the peace and the joy and the love. That's great, but self-control, why would I want to do that? And so I think this was the hardest one for me too. Self-control was the hardest one for me too, especially right at the beginning. man, I wanted to die. And that's like, that sounds like hyperbole. It is not. Like, I was like, God, take me, now. I'm ready, you know what? I don't know when you're coming back, but right now would be a good time. I haven't eaten like a hamburger in a long time. So self-control is really, really hard. It's the hardest one to take God up on, but it's also one of the most rewarding ones when we take God up on this benefit package. And what I learned from my journey is this: the hardest part is the start. The hardest part is the start. The strongest you're going to need to be whenever you start something is right at the beginning. It's right at the beginning. I know this because I work with kids who oftentimes have addiction problems, and the hardest part is just getting them clean right off the bat. After that, it's sustainability, and it's a lot easier. Now, they still mess up at the same rate, but it's easier to just keep going once you've established the habit. The hardest part is the start, and I remember this the first time I realized this. I was in 3rd grade, and I've been like a big person my whole life. I came out 11 pounds. I've never been a single-digit person like the rest of you schmoes. Never. Came out 11 pounds, The doctor said I came out smoking. I don't know what that meant, but that's what it meant. So I've always been this big guy, but you don't realize that as a kid. You're just playing, riding your bike, having fun. But I remember the first time I felt less than because of this. This thing came to my school. And maybe you guys had this come to your school. We had these campaigns that would come to our school in California. And sometimes it was like, reading is fun. I was like, no, it's not. But the other part was this. This one came, the fun run, right? Anybody ever have the fun run come to school? No one? Okay. Well, this campaign they launched it at an assembly. And they said, what we want to do is we want to get, you kids healthy. So you can use your recess time. This is where I was like, nope. You can use your recess time to run around the track. And every time you run around the track, we'll give you 1 ticket. And once you get 4 of those tickets, you can turn them in, and you get a gold star on this chart in your classroom, right? And each gold star represented a mile, obviously. And so I'm like, no, not going to do it. And he's going on. And then my friend, who wasn't really a friend, he was like a rival. You guys know these guys are like the frenemies, For some reason, you keep hanging out with them, but they're just bad for you, And I had that kid, and his name was Michael, and I looked over, and he goes, wouldn't it be super funny if you won that? And all of my friends like kind of laughed, and I'm like, wait, what's so funny about that? I'm like a chunky kid. And I was like, oh, because you guys think I can't do it. And I remember that like lit a fire inside of me, right? Like I never thought I was going to be about the fun run. Not even a little bit. But the second he said that, I was like, yeah, I'll show you. So we get out there, and because we just had the assembly, it's like there's a bunch of people. They're all lined up. They're ready to go right there. Everybody's ready to rock and roll on this thing. And the gym teacher goes, go, right? And we all start running. I see my friend of me. He just like speeds by me. I'm like, I'm going to keep up with him. I'm going to show him. I'm like, I can't keep up with him. I'm really tired. I'm like, look, I'm just going to take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to do a little bit of walking, So I'm out there walking around this thing. The bell rings, and I got halfway done. And everyone else, they were way ahead of me. And I looked at the gym teacher like, hey, can I finish? And he was like, nope, got to go inside. And I'm like coming back in, and he looks at me, like kind of defeated looking, and he rips a ticket in half, and he gives me half a ticket. Oh, man, I'm like, maybe the fun run's not for me, Maybe this isn't the fun run that I wanted to be. But then, of course, Michael shows back up, and he's like, TJ only got half a ticket, that whole thing. You know what they do as kids. And all my friends are laughing. And then I'm like, okay, I'll show you. I'm going to get back out there. And so I did. I got back out there, and I ran another half the next day. And it took me a while to get my first gold star, but I got it, right? And then pretty soon, I could run around that thing a whole time in a recess period. I was super excited about that. And my gym teacher was super excited about that too. He was like crying the whole time, like thinking there's like this Rudy moment going on for him. He was like, McConaughey, here we go, choice athlete right here. So I get around, and then I got to the point where I could do 1.5. And then I got to the point where I could do 2, right? And I did it for the 6 weeks that the thing went on for. And as I did it, every day that I went out there, less and less kids showed up until it was finally just me and the gym teacher. For like the last week, it was just me and the gym teacher running around this thing. And I was thinking, like, I already kind of knew that I was going to win the classroom just because of the gold stars. I'm like, I'm going to win my classroom. And so I was super excited about that. But at the year-end assembly, the person in the classroom who got the most would get awarded by like the principal with like this big ribbon, right? And I thought, well, I'm probably going to come in 3rd place because there's guys that were faster. They weren't with me in the end, but they were faster than me and they were getting more. So I figured I'm definitely got a good chance at 3rd place. And I had this whole thing like in my head, like the second they announced my name as 3rd place, like looking at Michael and being like, how do you like me now? You know, like I don't know what I was going to say, but it was going to be epic, right? It was going to be epic. And so I'm getting there, and I'm like sitting there, and then they're like, and the 3rd place winner of this year's fun run was, and they don't call my name. And I'm devastated. I'm like, dang, man, all that running for nothing, you know? I'm like, I let coach down, I let myself down. Michael doesn't even know, you know? And then they call the 2nd place winner, and I'm like, oh yeah, these guys make sense. But I couldn't think of who the 1st place winner was. I'm like, who was out there doing this? And all of a sudden, in the 1st place thing, they say, and our 1st place winner of the fun run this year is T.J. McConaughey, right? And I'm like surprised. I stand up, and I'm super surprised at this point. Everything that I had planned to do just went out the window. I'm like, I won? You know, and then I'm looking around because it's 6 weeks, so I'm still a chunky kid, right? And I look around, and everyone else is sharing that surpriseness, right? Like, as I'm walking up there, and kind of this slow clap kind of going on as I'm going forward, and I'm like, yeah, and then the principal's like looking at me like, wait, what happened here? Like, no, what is this thing? And he's like thinking like he's Steve Harvey moment right there, you know, like did I call the wrong person, you know? But they give me the ribbon, and I won the fun run. And here's the crazy thing is that in that moment, I realized that little bit of consistency every day will go a lot further than any sprint that I could ever do. Now, I told that story at the end of summer, after I'd been getting my mind right and getting my spirit aligned. I told that story at the last camp that I got to preach at this summer. And it stuck with me. It stuck with me in a way that, you know, usually things I say don't really stick with me. And the reason it stuck with me was because I realized that every time I told that story, I wasn't living up to the victories of my own narrative. I wasn't living up to my own successes. I wasn't taking God up on this idea of self-control. So right after that, I said, you know what? It's time to start. I've done the emotional battle. I've done the thinking around it. I've watched the documentaries on nutrition and all that stuff. I need to just start. And the hardest part is the start. Which brings me back to this guy. We love this story. This is like these pictures of the before and after. We love it because it's a clean narrative. It's a clean story, right? It's like I was lost and now I'm found. I'm blind, but now I see. We love this in the church, right? We love to see that just thing. But oftentimes, we forget about the journey in between all of these things. And what I want to suggest today is guys, the winner of this story, the hero of this story, isn't this guy, but it's this guy. It's this guy. When I took that picture, my heart and my head and my spiritual life were in line with God. In this moment, I had more strength than I'd ever had in my life. And all I had in this moment was not success, but I had belief. I had belief that God was going to help me and that I could get through it, right? And I post this picture a lot of times on social media. Every time I get to a new place, I post a new picture, right? And this picture changes, but this picture never changes. And my wife always sees this picture, and she always says the same thing. She always says, I wish you were smiling in this picture. That's just an awesome picture of my wife. This person is strong. This person's got a road ahead of him. But he's willing and ready to do the work. this week, as you guys think about the resolves that you want to change in your life, whatever they are, as you think about the resolves that they are, I believe that you have a God who you can trust in, who will take you through the hardest parts of this journey. And I think if you just start, get your mind and your heart right, and you just start, you will find strength that you didn't think you had before. So this week, take the before picture, but smile, because you got this, and God's got you. Will you pray with me? Jesus, I thank you for the hearts that are in this room. We thank that you are a God of redemption. You take us out of the pit of despair. You transform hearts and minds and bodies. And your whole ministry to us is this rescue mission. God, as we look at our lives and say, I want to set some goals for this year, I pray that you would bless those goals. I pray that those goals would be goals that aren't just shallow, but holistic, that involve you in the process. And God, I pray that you would be our hero. And you would be the love in this. God, you know that this week as I was preparing for this message, you had me look through some of my old notes. And you gave me this thing back. It was a poem that I wrote to you when I first started. God, I want to give you back this poem. Is it insider trading to bet on myself? Lord, I'm finally ready to take care of my health. Going to be my family's hero now. So many of my heroes have just let me down. Going to prove to my doubt that inside of me is still a fire, because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. God, I love you. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.